Here's the question. In a recent email from the Second Amendment Foundation, I read the following passage, but I'm not sure I understand what it means. This is a quote from Alan Gottlieb, who's the founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. They're very active in the gun rights litigation throughout the country. And he said, "It is also important that the High Court granted all writs of certiorari in these Second Amendment cases as they were being remanded back for further review. That tells me we have a Supreme Court willing to rein in lower court activism and limit how far they will allow local and state governments to reach when it comes to placing burdens on the exercise of a fundamental constitutionally enumerated right to keep and bear arms." So what's Alan talking about here? He's talking about these recent GVRs, as you called them in a piece, right? Right, Jake?
That's right. Yeah. So while Bruen was being, it was argued and then we were waiting for a decision, there were also other gun cases pending Supreme Court review that were stayed because obviously with a decision as monumental as what happened in Bruen, it can affect future gun cases. So what the Supreme Court did a week after Bruen was decided is they did what's called a grant, vacate, and remand order, or GVR, as you mentioned. So basically what that means is the Supreme Court grants cert or certiorari just so that they can vacate the previous ruling from the lower court and then remand, which means they send it back to that lower court to review it under the new standard based on what happened in the Bruen case, essentially. So what the Supreme Court did is it kicked these 4 cases back to the courts where they came from and said, hey, you need to relitigate these because we have a new standard for reviewing Second Amendment cases.
And I guess one of the important things to note about that is all 4 of those cases, the gun regulation had been upheld by that lower court, right?
That's right. No, that's right. Yeah, there was a case out of the Ninth Circuit where they completely banned the concept of carry outside the home, which obviously is Young versus Hawaii. Yeah, it's severely called into question by the Bruen decision. Right. So I think we all know where that's going to go. There was the assault weapons ban case out of Maryland, Bianchi v. Frosch, I believe that one is. And, as you pointed out, assault weapons bans are a relatively modern invention. And when the Supreme Court creates a new standard that says you need to look to the history of the Second Amendment when it was ratified, that also calls that into question, depending on how things go at the court. And then there were 2 mag ban cases, one out of California and one out of New Jersey. So a similar story there with the assault weapons case.
And magazine confiscation cases, really, because those cases, you wouldn't be allowed to keep the ones you already own. So that's extremely significant because it shows you the potential reach of this new ruling. It's not just limited to gun carry, even though that's the immediate impact of it.
Right.
That was the immediate question at hand in Bruen, was whether or not New York's gun carry regulations were too restrictive. And my air conditioner is turning on right now, of course. But I don't know if people can hear that. They're always paranoid, of course, when you're doing a podcast about what sounds are being picked up by the mic. But anyway, hopefully you can. But regardless, the New York law was viewed as unconstitutional by the court. It violated the Second Amendment by way of the 14th Amendment, because that's how they incorporated the Second Amendment protections to the states. The federal constitution restricts the federal government, but since the 14th Amendment was passed, those protections have now been over time extended to the states. But the problem was with the New York states, the way that they subjectively judged whether or not somebody was qualified to have a permit was ultimately what doomed that law. But clearly here by GVR and these 4 other cases that aren't all gun carry cases, it shows that this new standard they set in this ruling that you discussed briefly there is going to have an impact well beyond gun carry. So that's what Alan Gottlieb's talking about. He's, that's a way of also basically telling the lower court that you got it wrong.
Right.
GVR, granting a case, then vacating the lower court's ruling, and then sending it back to them to say, hey, do this again is a way of telling them they're wrong.
Right.
Without going into the full on, hearings and oral arguments and writing, opinions on them. So that's what Gottlieb is talking about there. All right. Next question here. This one's from Joseph Francella, who asks, what does this mean for people in possession of magazines that hold more than 10 rounds currently? I know that in California, the ban on new sales and imports is in place, but there was a stay placed on confiscation until SCOTUS took action. So he's talking about, that's Duncan, right? I believe, out of California, that case. So yeah, what do you see happening now?
Yeah. So like you said, he's talking about Duncan v. Bonta. We covered it a couple times on the Reload in some news stories, but that was one of the cases that was just GVR'd back to the Ninth Circuit. And as he pointed out, they did, California updated its magazine law to completely ban the possession of magazines that were previously grandfathered under their ban. So what that essentially means is you now have something that's criminal contraband and you have to turn it in. So confiscation. But what they said was, hey, the Supreme Court's reviewing a gun case. This could change the way we look at Second Amendment jurisprudence. So until that goes through, we're not going to make you turn in your magazines. Well, now that it's been granted and obviously there's live action happening in the case, I see this stay, still holding true.
Yeah.
Because they're obviously dealing with the ramifications of the new standard in Bruen. So this is a live question now.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see how the lower court feels this one out. What they do in response to Bruen is one of the big questions. And I think we have some questions on that later on. So we'll get a little more into it then. But I think it's one thing's important to note is nothing changes immediately.
Right.
This will probably take months for these cases to be relitigated.
If not years.
This new standard. Yeah, maybe years. For these ones that have been GVR'd, I would expect those to move a little faster. Some of these other, laws that might be called into question, like, handgun purchase permit.
Sure.
Schemes in some states that are that ride the line between shall issue and may issue, right? That ride that line between, giving the government official ultimate say over who gets to buy a gun. Those are probably imperiled by this, but we'll have to see. That'll probably take longer for a ruling to make its way through.
Yeah.
Or for a new case to make its way through, even with this new standard. So, but these GVR cases, those will probably be, maybe not weeks, but months, I would think.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to see with that bag ban case in California. It's going to go back. They're going to, the stay is going to remain. They're not going to start confiscating magazines. I don't believe. But yeah, it'll be a while before that gets fully fleshed out.